believed. He told me before he died, he said, they gave it to me. And he believed it.
Yeah, see, it's dangerous. It's dangerous
Yeah.
to be a truth teller. Very dangerous. And you mentioned earlier that I'm one of the targeted individuals. Well, one of the reasons that I'm spending so much time with my gang stalking mind control cults.com website is to try to work to educate people about the exotic weapons that are being used and the no-touch torture and the soft kill, silent kill, slow kill methodologies that the Pentagon and the CIA in particular have developed with academicians, since World War II. This has been a vast, secret, classified series of black projects. But before I get into that, Jeff, I just wanted to read this quote because it fits right into what you said. This is by George Soros in an interview with Germany's BILD, September 2014. This is George Soros speaking. I'm going to bring down the United States by funding black hate groups. We'll put them into a mental trap and make them blame white people. The black community is the easiest to manipulate. At least this is the quote that I've got in front of me and coming from this particular website, which is Jim Stone Freelance Journalist.
That's critically important, and it's probably accurate. It's just exactly what's going on. So
it is exactly what's going on, and according to this Jim Stone Freelance Journalist, actually. George Soros swears he did not pay for the riots. We know that, George, as I've said all along. Your kid Jonathan did so. So your excuse does not cut it. But anyway, going back to these exotic weapons and the anxiety that people are feeling in their homes. The problem with manipulating cultures and populations through fear and disinformation, as we have been manipulated for so many decades, for all of our lives actually, by an elite which also controls the military and intelligence branches and the corporatocracy, is that to come out of the straitjacket of the mainstream media and the official cover stories is, as Deborah Tavares says, is truth trauma. But once you start to come out, then things start to make sense. Let me just read a little bit of an article. One of the most prolific and I think academically solid of the targeted individuals who I've researched is a woman from Davis and University of California, Davis, named Cheryl Welch. And she's written many, many good articles about this. One that I'm quoting from here is Making Sense of Mind Control and No-Touch Torture in Contravention of Conventional Wisdom. And she says the history of CIA torture runs parallel to CIA neuroscience-based mind control research and also CIA non-lethal weapons research. This is important because mind control allegations, that would be from the victims, the targeted individuals, include descriptions of techniques that sound like all three CIA programs. In other words, MK Ultra never stopped. It is possible that the related Cold War CIA no-touch torture, non-lethal weapons, and neuroscience-based mind control programs have commingled for intelligence uses. Now, I'm suggesting, Jeff, that we should be all trying to get a little conversant with these topics because I think that directed energy weapons are in use against Americans now. They're silent, they're secret.
Oh, you bet they are. Oh, absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. And they're used against politicians. They're used against quote-unquote dissidents and whistleblowers. William Binney, the NSA whistleblower who was very, very high in the NSA, but quit when he saw that his own programs were being used against Americans, he has recently come out and said he's a targeted individual and a target of these same kinds of exotic non-lethal weapons. Non-lethal is in quotes because they can be tuned up to become quite lethal. But these would be what the military calls soft kill, silent kill, slow kill, neuro weapons, etc. And these have gone mainstream. And the corporatocracy and the academic establishment, which has worked over the last 70 years to develop these things, unbeknownst to 99.5% or 99.9% of Americans, these agencies have cashed in because they have all these exotic weapons, cyber warfare and nano warfare and neuro warfare, etc. And this is the revolution in military affairs that occurred in the 70s and 80s, and now all of our major military forces are involved in this, not only in foreign countries to get the result they want, which is always compliance to American objectives, but also in this country. In other words, enemies or quote-unquote terrorists or dissidents or subversives are identified anywhere and then can be attacked with these no-touch torture, soft kill, silent kill, slow kill weapons, as I have been ostensibly and openly, well, at least since 2003. And I've been reading other reports of other very, very I must say, brilliant targeted individuals like Dr. Ronnie Kilda and Kay Griggs, who you've interviewed, and Gloria Naylor, et cetera. And you start to read these accounts and you realize that, okay, these weapons are being used by our government, our military, our intelligence establishment, and by our fellow citizens, because they like to kind of spread the guilt. This is the gang stalking is the topic, or the organized stalking, electronic torture, as it's sometimes called. This is often carried out by private agencies as well, and by your neighborhood watch people.
So
your neighbors then
your neighbors.
Your neighbors become your torturers.
Yeah.
And so what we're starting to see, and I heard this expressed by somebody on an interview, is we now have an open-air electronic concentration camp or prison in which the prisoners themselves are enlisted to become the prison guards. So Americans then are enlisted to become surveillance role players. They're enlisted to become crisis actors. Now we're going to have contact tracers. And we become the heavies. Then we become our own neighbors in Neighborhood Watch or community policing agencies, then do the dirty work for the military and the intelligence agencies.
A quick word about that. People might be listening and say, what are you talking about? Why would my neighbor do anything to ever harm me? When the neighbor is contacted by one or two, maybe more, people who have big, very impressive wallets with government credentials, maybe a badge, and they say, I'm with the Department of Homeland Security, your neighbor over there across the street, we think is engaged in potentially dangerous activities. And we would ask you, will you help us keep an eye on? If we give you some technology, some equipment, would you put that in your house and just what we'll pay you, $1,000 a month just to let us put this up on your roof, whatever. The limitlessness of employing and enlisting neighbor against neighbor is scary. A little bit of money, little con job, and your neighbor becomes your jailer or your keeper or your prosecutor. It's that bad. And the technology, as Eric is saying, and I've been saying forever, is so far ahead of what you might imagine. Not you people necessarily, but the average person. They wouldn't, on a bet, even take a flying chance extending their mind and believing what's really out there. It just doesn't work for them. But it is truly advanced. It's amazing what they can do.
Yeah, it is phenomenal, and that's why I think people should start to, avail themselves of the information. We are an open society, as George Soros likes to say, and the information is out there. For instance, I've got on my website pulled up Joint Non-Lethal Weapons Directorate, JNLWD, and this is a unclassified document from the military that dates to 2011. Here's another one that's Non-Lethal Weapons Program from 2016. So we can find these official military documents which talk about these very technologies. And Department of Homeland Security would be involved in what you're saying. FBI is very involved and has been since their COINTELPRO or counterintelligence program of the 50s, 60s, and 70s, which, that's all a matter of public record. The FBI killed 28 Black Panthers. in order to suppress, any movement of independence by the blacks. It killed the beautiful actress Jean Seberg. I'll never forgive them for that. She's such a beautiful woman, and all she did was have a good heart and want to, help the civil rights movement. And they harassed her to suicide. And from what I'm understanding now, the technology of surveillance was such that Nixon and J. Edgar Hoover enjoyed watching her harassment in the White House because they have this sensing technology that goes back to the Vietnam War, et cetera, which can track and target somebody 24/7. So all of us targeted individuals,
they killed her.
Probably many more are done.
She was murdered.
Yeah.
Well, give us your website again, the URL for people so they know. What is it?
It's gang stalking, mind control cult, all one word, .com. There's now about 13 or 1,400 articles there, all kinds of testimonies from different targeted individuals, all kinds of official documents, and the research of the people that I consider most legitimate and sane. Because, as you say, there are always going to be the moles and the disinformation agents
too many.
Who will try to make a mockery of the whole thing,
And they do, unfortunately. Yeah. Okay. Once again, gang stalking, for all of you out there, gang stalking, mind control, cults.com. We'll link it to your name here. Get it up there.
Yeah, and for those who don't want to write it all out, I've got another one which goes to the same website. It's just simpler. It's globalgestapo.com. And this is really what we're looking at. We're looking at a global Stasi state or a global Gestapo state. All these things have been tried in the past.
Right.
The Soviets, had their Cheka police and their KGB, and that morphed into the East German Communist Stasi, which they really perfected it. And those people came, such as Marcus Wolf, came and consulted for our new Department of Homeland Security after 9/11 in 2002. So we had representatives from the Soviet Union and Communist East Germany help us design our Department of Homeland Security. So that tells you that it's a totalitarian system, and so this is going on in the background. And I can tell you from my experience and from that of many other TIs that this COVID-19 has not slowed down the targeting of targeted individuals in America and elsewhere, which tells me that these are nested operations, that they are carried out by the same forces, the same entities, and they are both towards the same goal, which is this technocratic, totalitarian police state in which individual sovereignty and national sovereignties are not respected. So this is why I think it's a real good time for people to brush up on their Constitution, their Declaration of Independence, and grow a backbone, grow a spine, and take off your stupid mask, which brands you as a slave, and which actually is bad for your health, and take off your stupid gloves, which actually transmit disease more than if you were not wearing gloves. I mean, you talk to a medical person, if they're doing medical work in the hospital, they'll change gloves 100 times a day, and they've got you wearing these. They've made fools of you. They're making fools of you. They're having you say, "I'm an idiot," and then you're having you sanction your own behavior to help somebody else. Theoretically, you're okay. I'm being a good person. What do they call that now? They've got a word for that. All these words, but it's a psychological operation. It's the people the psychologists that were paid by the CIA to help them design their no-touch torture program at Guantanamo Bay, $90 million, according to an article I read. They were trying to impose learned helplessness. I think this is what's happening. So imagine we're all in Guantanamo Bay now as an electronic concentration camp. We're all being taught learned helplessness in order to be sheeple. And gosh, that's not how this country started, I don't think. I think we had some people with spines back then.
Yeah, even if it was only 3%, they had spines, and they stood up, and they did it. That's right. This is really amazing. When all of you out there consider the fact that It's not hard for them to recruit neighbors. Let's say you've got neighbors that you don't know, you've never met. They live across the street from you. You know the way it is now, people don't even know their damn neighbors. So it's easy to go and recruit those people. And those people are all profiled in advance anyway. They know who they are. They know how they think. They know what they do. If they fit the profile, they'll be approached. This is gang stalking. This is very easy. We'll give you $1,000 a month if you let us know, whatever. And it's not a problem. If you have a neighbor who's a good buddy of yours, they're not going to approach that person because he'll tell you or she'll tell you. So they'll go to the people that really don't know you well. They'll paint you out to be some monster in hiding, and they need your help. That's how they do a lot of it. All right? It's not hard. It just isn't.
Right. And, there was the young Yale psychologist Stanley Milgram in the 1960s who wrote a book called Obedience to Authority. And he conducted these obedience experiments that were replicated, which is based on some trickery by the psychologist, in which some 65 to 90% of average people who are participating in his experiment will shock or believe they are shocking a fellow human being to death based on the authority and the instructions of the authority figure. So like you say, if the FBI guy comes and flashes a badge, and it is often the FBI, because they're intimately involved with this and have been since the 50s, but it's also the privatized version of the FBI, InfraGard, and hundreds of other private corporations that are run by ex-FBI guys. So this is the FBI, it is the NSA, it is the CIA, it is DHS.
That's right. And it's independent contractors, tons of them.
Yep.
Former agency, former intel people. What are they going to do when they retire? They start their own. And there are always government monies available to pay them. I want to acknowledge the author of that book, Weird Scenes Inside the Canyon, Laurel Canyon, Covert Ops, and the Dark Heart of the Hippie Dream, David McGowan, along with Nick Bryan. Dave was just a terrific guest, wonderful man, and they took him out. I have no doubt. You remember 10, 12 years ago, there was a congressman in New Mexico. His name was Steve Schiff. True, not Adam, Steve Schiff. Maybe the same family, I don't know. But he was after the Office of Management and Budget, OMB, to have them subpoenaed and forced to turn over all of their records pertaining to the UFO ET issue. Now, any study or any interaction or anything